Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome founder and CEO of the Mind Trust, David Harris.
Well, good evening. My first assignment tonight is to ask you to start eating your salad, so we're on a bit of a tight time frame. But on behalf of the board of directors and the staff of the Mind Trust, it's just a great pleasure to welcome you to tonight's dinner. It's been a really exciting day for education in Indianapolis. Today we hosted our first ever Charter Schools Innovation Summit, where talented education innovators pitched their ideas for entirely new, never before been tried school models that they believe can better serve the needs of our students. We had talented people from across the country, and in fact across the globe, that applied to participate in today's competition. We selected 12 teams, and all 12 teams were just terrific. It was quite a day. And we're going to hear in just a minute from the winner, but a few things we wanted to talk about. First, about why did we do this summit? Well, the Mind Trust believes passionately that all kids, no matter what their backgrounds, no matter what their circumstances, if given the right supports and the right conditions, can excel. And there are educators and innovators in our city and across the nation that are proving that every single day. And yet there are still too many kids in our community and in our country that aren't getting the education that they deserve. We at the Mind Trust believe that the best way to address that challenge is to empower more talented educators, more talented innovators to come up with new and better ways to meet the needs of our kids. And we are doing that every day. That's what we do. Through the three incubators that the Mind Trust operates, we've invested now in 25 leaders who either have or are in the process of launching 17 new schools in our community and 8 nonprofits for our communities. People like Mariama Carson, who is getting ready this fall to launch the city's first dual language immersion charter school, or people like Earl Martin Phelan, whose blended learning models school serves almost entirely economically disadvantaged kids, and yet 100% of the third graders pass the state's reading exam. Or people like Caitlin Hannon, who is working with our district schools and our charter schools to create a common enrollment system so all kids have equal access to great schools. And today's competition was not just about the competition. We want to add more great innovators running more great schools for our kids. And that's why we're so excited about today and the competition that happened today. The winner, who we're going to announce in a minute, is going to get $50,000 to more fully develop their plan in hopes that they will launch it right here in our community. And again, we're going to hear from that person in just a minute, but before we do, there are a few people we want to thank for making tonight's dinner possible. First of all, we're just enormously honored to have David McCullough and Jane Pauley here with us tonight. It's just a great treat for our community. We were also overwhelmed by the caliber of the participants in today's competition. Would everybody who participated in the competition today please stand? We'd like to recognize you. We're also very grateful to our distinguished panel of judges, both local and many came great distances to be here. So we're thrilled that they were able to participate in the event today. They made a big difference. We're, of course, enormously grateful to our title sponsors, Eli Lilly and Company and the Richard M. Fairbanks Foundation, and all of our other sponsors who made tonight's dinner possible. Thank you so much to them. Of course, we're thrilled to have the mother of charter schools here with us tonight. State Senator Teresa Lubbers fought for 7 years to get a charter school law. And we're thrilled to have Bart Peterson here, who was the first mayor in the nation to use chartering authority and was so successful at using that authority, there was once a national profile of him that was entitled Indianapolis Mayor Bart Peterson, the Peyton Manning of charter schools. Literally every single member of our team contributed to today and to tonight's event, and so I want to thank all of the members of our team, but I do want to single out a few people. Brandon Brown and Audrey Audrin from our innovations team just did a spectacular job both conceiving of this idea for today's competition and managing it through to today, so we're very grateful to them. Sarah Hawkins and Steve Campbell did so much to make tonight's dinner and today's competition possible. Steve was the one who came up with this great logo that we have all over the place. So thank you so much to them. And it's now my great pleasure to, I knew there were more people I had to recognize. First, we want to thank Mary Beth Smith and Associates because they always do such a magnificent event. And if you will indulge me, and here's why I had to go back, of course I want to recognize my favorite educator in the room, my wife, Marion, who is here. I met my wife, Marion, on Martha's Vineyard, and I discovered today that Mr. McCullough chased his wife to Martha's Vineyard, so we have that in common. And now it's a great pleasure for me to introduce my colleagues, Brandon Brown and Camila Shahid Diallo, who are going to talk a little bit about charter schools, today's summit, and announce today's winner.
Thank you, David, and good evening. I'm always humbled by the turnout that we have at these events, which is such an exciting reminder of how much people in our community care about education. So thank you all again for being here. So the state law creating charter schools in Indiana passed in 2001, meaning that charter schools have been in existence in Indiana for 15 years. However, many people still ask us, what exactly is a charter school? So for those of you who are new to this discussion, let's start with the basics. A charter school is a tuition-free, autonomous public school that operates independent of traditional school district policies. Charter schools are free from many state rules and regulations, giving school leaders the freedom and flexibility to explore new school models that meet the specific needs of their students. Indianapolis is unique because our mayor has the authority to grant charter schools, along with school districts, a state board, and many universities. Mayor Peterson built the mayor's authorizing office, which won Harvard's Innovation in American Government Award in 2006. Mayor Ballard continued the tradition of excellence and was honored as a model charter school authorizer. Nationwide, charter schools have been around for about 25 years, and they have shown that all students can learn at very high levels, often dispelling the myth that poverty is a barrier to high academic achievement. Particularly in urban areas where the challenges with schooling are intense and the academic results are disappointingly low in far too many communities. Charter schools have shown that where educators have the freedom to innovate, students thrive. Stanford University compared charter school students' growth to that of their similar peers in district schools, and in most cities found a striking advantage for students who attended charter schools. In over 60% of cities, charter school students outpaced their district peers. In Indianapolis, students in charter schools have done especially well. Students here gain more than 2 months of additional learning in reading and almost 3 months more in reading compared to their district peers. So why have charter schools largely been successful? Because the charter sector is helping to drive innovation in public education. Charter schools have been successful because their leaders have the ability to innovate in ways that their counterparts in traditional district schools often do not, such as extending the school day or the year to better meet the needs of students. Charter schools have been pioneers in expanding learning time for students, using technology to personalize learning, creating school cultures that foster near universal college going, and involving parents and community members in the governance of schools, and also providing wraparound services to meet the needs of the whole child. This is why we've been so excited to see the next wave of education innovation that we've seen today at the summit. So now I'm pleased to introduce my colleague, Brandon Brown, who will talk more about the summit and announce the winner.
What a day. So for those of you who weren't able to spend about 6 or 7 hours with us today, seeing 12 outstanding teams pitch extremely innovative ideas for new schools in the city, you really missed out. It was just an extraordinary day. And to see over 600 people from our community in this room here to celebrate the work that we're seeing with charter school innovation, and it's just humbling and exciting to be doing this work in collaboration with all of you. So why the Charter School Design Challenge, and why this summit? Because while some charters have begun to innovate, most schools continue to look similar to the way schools have looked for 50 years. Students are typically divided into classrooms and are expected to progress at the same pace until 12th grade. One teacher usually takes responsibility for a group of students, usually alone. And almost all schooling takes place within a conventional school building with class periods and 180 days a year and summers off. These practices came into existence for good reason. They were meeting the needs of our economy at that time. Our economy is no longer the same as it was in the 1950s. The world has changed dramatically, while schools have remained pretty much the same. The global economy and massive improvements in other countries' systems make it so important that we continue to innovate right here at home. To excel in today's world, all students need to access high academic standards and either obtain a college degree or some kind of credential. And while today's schools adequately prepare some students for that future, far too many are being left behind, and this is especially true for low-income students and students of color. So now is the time to rethink that model. Many industries have undergone dramatic shifts in response to our changing world, and if countless other sectors can do it, we can do it too. That's why 7 months ago we issued a challenge to innovators from across the country, urging them to completely rethink the way that we do schools. Through the Mind Trust Charter School Design Challenge, over the next couple of years, we will award 4 $250,000 awards to break the mold ideas that challenge the very notion that we think when we think about what school is. These resources, along with support from the Mind Trust, will spur the creation of the nation's most cutting-edge schools right here in our city. So to generate national interest, we invited leaders from across the country to apply to our school design competition. I'll be honest, I didn't know if we would receive many applications. We don't have mountains and we don't have oceans. We're kind of this Midwestern city. We were shocked, thrilled, and excited to actually receive 36 quality applications from across the country and the globe. We then did an internal review, narrowed that down to 12 teams who spent the day pitching their ideas in front of a panel of 14 distinguished judges. All of those teams have the ability, and we encourage them to apply for our full $250,000 Charter School Design Challenge Award and continue their journey along refining their school models to hopefully launch them here in our city. The 12 teams were then narrowed down to 4 finalists. And I would actually like to announce those 4 finalists, have them stand, and then after they're announced, I would like a huge round of applause. This was something that took a lot of courage to stand in front of a bunch of folks from our community, give a pitch, answer questions, and then they got 5 minutes of feedback that was non-rebuttal, so they couldn't answer the feedback. It was intense. So our 4 finalists were Rooted School, Ubique Academy, Stemnasium, and Hack School. Let's give them a round of applause. While we think all 4 of these teams, and actually all 12 of the teams that are here today, have the ability to open up transformational schools for our students, only one team can win. And now it is my honor to announce that winner. Once announced, we ask that the winning team please step forward for your award presentation, some pictures, and then your interview with Jane Pauley. The winner of the Mind Trust's School Design Competition and $50,000 grand prize is Stemnasium.
is now my pleasure to introduce someone who needs no introduction in this city or really anywhere in the country, one of the nation's greatest journalists, winner of virtually every award in journalism, but more importantly, someone with a huge heart who cares passionately about her former community, still her community, and kids around the country. She's a great advocate for mental health issues, for children's health issues, and we are fortunate that public education is one of her passions. We're thrilled to have her on our board, and we're delighted that she's here to interview our winner tonight, ladies and gentlemen, Jane Pauley.
And I would like to correct something young Brandon said about how schools haven't changed in 50 years. I can testify from personal experience, it's been at least 60. Tariq, congratulations. I was privileged to see the 4 finalists. All were astonishing, and any one of you group teams would have deserved it. But here you are with a personal story to tell. You began your presentation explaining to us how you were basically on the right path as a teenager, albeit going the wrong direction.
Thank you. Yes. And for those of you who didn't have a chance to hear, what is referenced is, my story, starts out a little different. The projects in Brooklyn, New York, Tilden housing to be specific. Curious teenager. And, at a time when, comic books were just kind of outdated, I decided to learn how to write code, which led to me hacking the high school's computer system, which was not a good idea. And that landed me in front of a very forgiving and a very knowledgeable judge. And, I was given a choice. And, I will admit that my first choice was not to join the United States Armed Forces. I mean, it just was not on the radar for me, but I was encouraged to do that, and I am I'm thankful that I followed through on that. And, that experience, as I mentioned, that experience on being sent on a new positive trajectory and learning a new career in STEM, and I'll open up a little bit about what my career was. It was a Navy Intel Counter-Intel officer. So if you know anything about that, you have to do well to get into that position. And that took me around the world. And initially, I just wanted to write about the experiences because, back then we didn't have smartphones. You couldn't pull out a phone to take pictures. And certainly the job requirements didn't allow that either. So that was the story. And then my son was born, and he was diagnosed with Asperger's. And I'm like, what? As who? And, really being, the dad that I was, I wanted to make sure that he had a chance to learn without his handicap being an issue. And so I started thinking of all the things that I'd been blessed to learn and to be a part of. And that led to breadcrumbs. I saw him eating a sandwich one day, and he tore the sandwich up. And I said, no, there's a better way to do this. And I broke it down into small pieces, and that is how I was able to create the foundation for what we now call Stemnasium.
Stemnasium. I hope you find it amusing that Jane has her smartphone with her. I'm not expecting a call. I couldn't find a pencil when I was taking notes. That's the truth. Your presentation referenced Mark Zuckerberg, who was a teenager. Bill Gates was a teenager. Steve Jobs was a teenager, or possibly even preteen when they were introduced to technology, which gave them an early start. You would like to change, as you put it this afternoon, the who, the what, and the when of STEM education: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
That's correct. I think, there are a number of programs that address STEM and computer science. And sometimes people aren't, and even myself, I admit, initially, I had to really understand what the difference was, even though I knew it academically. But there's a fine difference between computer science and STEM. I'm happy to elaborate at a later time, but there are a number of programs that address the learning at the adult level and at the high school level. And that's a great thing. But what I've experienced firsthand in countries like China, India, Australia, that they tackle this head on very early. As soon as children start walking, what a radical idea it is to start teaching them the foundational concepts of engineering, computer science, programming. And STEM is a language, and I've said that. And when we put children in front of this thing early on, we're going to see some of the amazing results. And, if I may just use an example, for the parents here, if we tried explaining walking to a child who has not yet mastered the gift of language, we're going to get a whole bunch of Google and Gagas. But if we really want that child or children to walk, that child or those children to walk, we take little hands and we place them against a table, a chair, a wall, a desk. And what happens is, not a miracle, they become comfortable with standing. And walking is not even an option at that point. They start running. And then we say as caregivers, slow down, you're going to hurt yourself. Right? How many of us said that? But really what we mean is now we want to give you what you need to know how to get up when you do fall. And so, those are some of the things that are rooted into what makes Stemnasium.
Well, your observation, just to amplify the point you just made, is that we all understand that learning a language is best done early in life, and as you've said, STEM is a language. You have, in your experience, this is not just your vision, it is in practice, and you have already created at least one prodigy that I know about. Her name is Zora Ball. How old is she now?
Zora is 11 now, and she's 11. And, what's really amazing about Zora is that if you haven't had a chance to Google her, please do so. You're going to find a very girly girl. And that's what she was, and I was not interested in changing that. But rather, I wanted to put her in front of something that I thought would be a fantastic idea for her to grasp. And that's ultimately what happened. And so essentially, what she was able to do in the kindergarten, she was able to grasp what we would define as Cartesian math. Essentially, that's just a coordinate system. And once I knew she knew... Yeah, well, she could count from 1 to 10, and so once I knew that, and then I was able to show her a line, I knew she knew what that was, and then we were able to add plus and minus, and then higher order thinking, increase, decrease, and that's essentially what she did. But no different than what I would have done with a child trying to teach them to walk. I couldn't give that to her at first. She had to take baby steps to get there.
By the age of 8, what had she done?
So by the age of 8, really 7, she's the youngest person on record to ever code a mobile app. And at 11, she's been all over the world. We did an event. I'll speak briefly. At a USC, we spoke with President Clinton and some other folks there. And there were some skeptics that how could she do this at 7? In real time, she went from famous to a legend. She transformed the game, rewrote the code to look like will.i.am from the iconic group Black Eyed Peas in real time. And it just went on from there. So, at 7.5, 8 years old, she created this amazing game.
Tariq, you've been on the clock all day. I'm so sorry. Trying to tell this story. The two of us are looking at the clock, and I'm wasting your time. What does your school model look like?
Well, a few things. The beginning of the day is we have what we call presentation. And this is very deliberate. To be able to write as a STEM professional, you have to have technical writing skills. It's a lost art. Penmanship doesn't exist in schools anymore. And so this is one of the things that we start with. So teachers have an opportunity to pick a subject from the following day, and then a student that volunteers comes and presents their idea. And it can be as simple as I'm going to explain algorithm or fulcrum, or I have something that I like to share with, via multimedia.
And these
But
are elementary school
These
children.
elementary students, yes, these are elementary students. And then after that, we go into what we call workshops. Classes are great, but for the students, we don't want them to see a box, so we don't put them inside of a box. So workshops for us are essentially equivalent to classes, your general education classes, history, art, reading, math. And then from there, something special happens, because in the classes, they're learning coding and programming. And that may seem scary until you realize that JavaScript really is capital letters, lowercase letters, open parentheses or close parentheses, and a semicolon. That's JavaScript.
I didn't know that. Do you know what, Tariq? You're going to bring this to Indianapolis, and it's going to be a grand success, and I'm so proud you've favored our city. Welcome to Indianapolis.
Thank you very much.
Don't forget that. Enjoy dinner.